What's up, people? How are we? Hope you're enjoying the Saturday. If you were tuning into the live I just had with Giuseppe, for some reason, Instagram just stopped working and it completely shut off.
Hey
Brother,
man.
what's up? How are you?
No, not much,
Wow.
man. Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, guys. Sorry about that. We don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Um, but
wasn't
yeah,
too
if we could
sure.
just go back over, sorry you have to redo this whole thing, but you could sum it up. Just introduce yourself, where you're from, how old you are, um, and then kind of how you signed your first professional contract, and then you'll take us through your journey a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Giuseppe Gentile. I'm a professional soccer player. I'm 27 years old. I am Swiss American. Was born in the United States, but then I was raised in Switzerland, and that's where I currently am living. Um, Eric and I were talking about before, I've had quite the journey. Uh, I played in college, played at UNC Charlotte. I did that for 3 years until I got drafted in 2014 by the Chicago Fire in MLS. After that, I had several spells with other clubs. I played for clubs like San Antonio Scorpions that no longer exist. I play in the NASL. The Fort Lauderdale Strikers. Played for Ottawa Fury. They also no longer exist. Um, I played for Richmond Kickers, Puerto Rico FC, Hartford Athletic, and FC Chiasso here in Switzerland, the second tier.
Hmm.
Soccer has fortunately been very kind to me and has taken me to several different places around the world. And it has cultured me and it has taught me a lot of life lessons that I wouldn't have learned without it. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
For sure, for sure. And you've seen a lot of things, exist and then kind
Hmm.
of fold. So that's probably been
Yeah.
funny, huh?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. That's crazy. And that's the nature of the game, unfortunately.
Absolutely, bro. But yeah, if you could just take the listeners through, I mean, like you told on last IG Live, how did you kind of go from 3 years in college? How did you get to the MLS from there?
So my freshman year, I was the NCAA Rookie of the Year. My team and myself, we ended up making it to the NCAA finals, and we ended up losing, unfortunately. But I had a standout season. I was the leading goal scorer and also leading assister of the team that year. And so I got quite a few accolades that year and a lot of recognition, which led to my second season that as a sophomore, I also did really well. I finished the season also as top scorer. And, a lot of eyes were on me from having two really good seasons. And my third year, I just, like I was telling Eric before, I felt really convicted that like I've achieved basically everything I needed to achieve in college, individually and also collectively as a team. I just felt like the only thing that probably could have made things better would have been if we would have won the national championship my freshman year. But to be honest, my college career was very, very optimal.
Hmm.
Like not very many people can say that they've achieved as much. I'm not saying as me, but just like if you envision a college career, a lot of players would say, yeah, I would like to, maybe make it to the NCAA tournament or
Hmm.
what did you say? Where are you playing next? Switzerland or USA? Neil, it's undecided. If you have a contract for me at Madison, hit me up. That's one of my that's one of my buddies. We're real cool. I play with him at
Yeah.
Richmond. Yeah, I play with him at Richmond, and I play with him at the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. So, Neil, what's up? He's now the assistant coach at Forward Madison, which is USL League One.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So back to my college career. I think that after my sophomore season, I knew I was ready, that I wanted to leave. So what I ended up doing was I went on some trials with MLS clubs throughout the summer, and I went to Colorado. I went to Sporting Kansas City just to do some trials and to show myself or whatever. And they took a liking to me as a player, and they ended up saying that they think that I'm ready to leave college, and that kind of gave me the courage to say, I'm going to leave my junior year. After that, my junior season was finished, and I just left because I felt confident that somebody would pick me up, and I ended up getting drafted by the Chicago Fire.
Awesome, bro. So like you said, when you were a sophomore, you went out to train with some MLS teams. Obviously, going from the college game to the pro game, what did you notice like some of the big differences were?
Yeah, it was very significant. Like, it was a lot faster, and the players are a lot smarter. Physically, they're better or stronger. They're just fast. I mean, just the entire game is just completely different from college to pro. In my opinion, it's not even comparable from high school to college. If you make the jump from high school to college, it's a pretty big jump, but I would only say physically, because, you're an 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid going up against 20-something-year-olds, but, you still know how to play soccer, you know what I mean? Like, and you can adapt quickly, but as a pro, I genuinely thought that when I went from college to pro, I was like really amazed on how much faster the game was. Like, you feel like you're playing at a pretty fast pace in college, but then you come to players that only play one touch. Then you meet players that they see the game one or two steps ahead, and there's players that are so smart that they even know what you're going to do before you do it. And they just read the game differently than compared to college. And all right, Neil,
You want to come up to the Swiss Alps?
Yeah, come on over. I'll invite you to my house. Yeah, I was just really impressed with the intelligence of soccer. It was just like that you've met. I just got to meet in the MLS level just a lot of people that played at very, very high levels. And one thing that stuck out to me a lot was when Kai Kamara took a lot of time and was just talking to me. And he's currently the highest leading goal scorer in MLS history for active players. So like he's still playing, and he's has the most goals in MLS currently just for active players. I think he's missing a few goals to catch up to like Landon Donovan or Colby Jones or one of those guys that is just like the all-time leading. But he he took a lot of time, and he was just like talking to me, and he really mentored me during my time period there, and it was only like 4 or 5 days. And I was really surprised that somebody of that stature or of that caliber player was that nice, because after that summer he ended up making a move to the Premier League. He ended up signing with Norwich City.
I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah. So he went from Sporting KC to Norwich, and he signed in the Prem. And dude, he was scoring goals in the Premier League, and like that's something that I carried with me throughout my whole pro career. I was like, man, this guy was so nice to me. And I was just like some random college kid that came to train with the team, and he didn't have to do that. And I guess that's kind of like a personal experience I had, and something that's really not relevant to, I guess, the differences of level from high school, college, and then college to pro. But
yeah, it's not, but I think it's a very interesting fact. It's like, you said there, just the ability of him to be humble and, help you out. First of all, it's something he didn't have to do, but, it just shows his character. And I think that's huge with football. I mean, I talk a lot with guys who I've had on the podcast, on the IG Live, just how important it is to just be a good guy, and it's very underrated. Like, even players who are looking to make it in the game, like just going to training and always being a nice guy, whether you're at a training that you've been and you know all the guys, or you're new, you're looking to sign a new contract, or you're going to some combine. I just think it's worth it to be a nice guy, because we've all seen like those guys who come in there with big heads, who think they have a big name. And just relating this to Kamara, it's like, this guy, you say he's a big name, played in the Prem. For him to come to you just shows and reemphasizes the importance of just being a good dude, just being kind. And I think also it says, like, for me, I'm the type of guy, I think I could learn from anyone. So it's like treating everyone the same no matter who they are.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point that I feel like we should be able, or humble enough to be able to learn from anyone in any given position. I mean, it doesn't really have to be a professional player. It could just be, a fan, or it could be someone in the front office. It could happen to be a teammate, or it could even be somebody on the other team. But yeah, I feel like that was just something that I felt like sharing, just because
For sure.
it wasn't really like it was one of my first pro experiences, and I have the special thing about it is that I haven't really found that since. So
That's
that speaks
interesting. Very interesting.
that speaks volumes of him as a player, or as a person, how nice he really was, and that I found it in one of my first pro experiences and never really found it again.
That's interesting.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah. If you don't mind, if they weren't too personal, what type of things was he saying to you?
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't really anything like, it wasn't anything like profound, really. It was just more like the experience of him taking his time and speaking to me, and just giving me advice on, like, man, like, when you get into this situation, I try to do this, or when you're in this situation, try to do that. And he's really trying to guide me through what made him successful. And that is something that I really appreciated, because, like, maybe my style and his style wouldn't really correlate, or wasn't really similar, but he would try to help me on what made him successful. And a lot of people who are successful, they don't really want to give away their secrets, but he was really open, and he was like, hey, look, like, my first touch is not the best. That's why I try to get as close as possible to the goal, that when I'm 5 yards away, the chances of me scoring are a lot higher than if I'm 15 yards away. And just like very, very subtle tips that make a really big difference.
And even that right there, if you kind of read into it, is a very good tip. It's, really trying to target your strengths, and really like use your strengths to the best of your ability. Like you said, maybe his first touch isn't that good, but his ability to be in the right position when the ball gets crossed into him, or when the ball is laid off to him, to know to make the right decision is a simple tip. But if you really think about it, it's a very valuable one.
Yeah. I mean, just having followed his career ever since, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I actually didn't really know who he was before my time there. But, I started following him, his career, and also just on social media and stuff. And just watching him play, I mean, like, he's a freak. Like, he's a specimen. Like, he's so good, like, with his physical attributes, that, like, man, he scores headers for fun. I mean, he's jumping 35, 36 inch verticals at 35 years old, and like, it's just very admirable on my end, that I just, I have such a positive experience with him, that I kind of see him, I guess, from a different lens. And
sure.
I just really appreciated that.
Absolutely. So then could you kind of take us after, after you did those trials, and after your junior season to the Fire, how'd your, path kind of look after that, after the Fire?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of mentioned earlier that I played for 4 teams in one season, which is very unusual, but that did happen. So when I was with the Fire, they ended up loaning me out to the Charlotte Eagles in USL, which is today the second tier, but back then it was the third tier in US soccer. And that spell didn't last very long, because the Chicago Fire ended up releasing my rights, and then I signed on with the Orlando City, Lions that were in USL also. And when the USL season concluded and finished, I ended up signing a contract with an NASL club, which was the second tier in USL soccer at the time. And kind of how that worked was because the USL season and the NASL season overlapped for a certain period of time. And then the NASL season still extended a couple months. So I still had like 2 months left from September till November to play for the San Antonio Scorpions. We ended up winning that season. We ended up winning the league, which it was really, really cool. It was a great experience. I thought San Antonio was amazing. I really had a really good experience there. The people were really nice. The stadium was top class. Like, I mean, it's one of the, in my opinion, one of the best lower division, or I guess just say USL, NASL division soccer specific stadiums. I mean, it's unreal. And after that, I ended up moving to Switzerland, but I came back home, and I had a second division team offer me a contract, and I ended up signing it and stayed here for 6 months until the team here had financial issues, and they kind of just, you know, I had a reform within the club, and they basically forced me out. And then I ended up signing again with San Antonio Scorpions for the remainder of the season. So I was 6 months in Switzerland and then 6 months again in America. After that,
so you came back. I think you said you went to Switzerland at 21. So when you came back,
Sure.
you were 22.
I think I was still 21, turning 22.
Okay.
So yeah,
it's still a
22.
very young player in America.
Yeah. Just I feel like with giving some insight, or I guess some background information on the whole situation, I feel like young players in America, even as little as 5 years ago, weren't really, how do you say, like they weren't really preferred, or like they weren't really in the front line, or I guess highly regarded to coaches compared to today. I feel like US soccer is changing so quickly that back then, even like 6 years ago, I think that coaches were still very fixated on veteran players compared to today. We have so many more youth-based teams in America playing professional now. Like you have New York Red Bulls 2. You have all these MLS teams that have 2 teams that can give these young players opportunities to play at the highest level or at the pro level in America, that they'll develop at the rate that they can end up being at 21, 22, MLS, or even a higher level ready compared to before, the kids that would go through college that would need an adaptation period to kind of adapt to the pro level and then kind of excel. So I feel like when I was still coming out of college, I feel like that system wasn't really set in place, and I struggled a little bit with finding my feet and like kind of really settling my roots in a club. And it kind of really crept into my game. I mean, I personally thought I was playing well. I scored five. I scored 4 goals my rookie year. But the thing was, it was with 3 teams. So it's like if you were scoring 1 and 1 and 1, and then people were like, well, yeah, he wasn't really that good. Overall, if I would have been on one team and I would have gained chemistry with the same team, same players, yada, 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 I would have settled my roots and probably been a lot more comfortable.
Absolutely.
But just because I was always on the go, always with a new team, with new teammates, new environment, new coaches, new demands, I kind of shook me a little bit at the beginning, but I had to learn how to shake it off quick. I had to learn that this was the nature of the game and the nature of my profession that I chose. Like nobody's forcing me to play soccer. I wanted to. So that's kind of something that I felt like I didn't mention before when we were talking, but it just mentioning it now. I feel like young players in America, it wasn't always easy at the beginning, but that's actually I take back what I'm saying. It's not easy for anyone anywhere. It's never easy, but I feel like players today in America have a way bigger advantage to make it because there are a lot more platforms for them
Yeah.
to showcase themselves and a lot more opportunities. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish, or I wish for myself sometimes that, I would have had those same showcasing abilities. But, that's something in the past that I don't really talk about.
For sure.
Um, After that, I went to Fort Lauderdale. After Fort Lauderdale, I went to Ottawa in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Canada, I went to Puerto Rico. And well, one thing I forgot to mention about Fort Lauderdale was pretty cool was that Ronaldo, the R9, he was the owner of the club, or the face of the club.
Mm.
So that was pretty special. And then when I went to Puerto Rico, Carmelo Anthony, he was the owner of PRFC, which was really
Mm.
cool because then we got to hang out with some NBA All-Star players and stuff. That was pretty chill. And Puerto Rico as a whole was a really special place just because, it's island living. It's like kind of
Sure.
like, it's just like that chillax all the time. Like you're just like,
How was it living
oh,
there? You enjoyed it?
yeah, it was cool. It was for sure
Yeah.
really, really cool. But um, sometimes, sometimes I felt like I wasn't in real life, like if that makes sense. Like you feel like you're in on vacation like the entire year. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So it's like
Yeah.
at some point I was just like thinking to myself like, man, like when is like the real world gonna hit me and like when am I gonna
Yeah.
like, have to like have a faster pace of living? But I was just like life was so slow there all the time. Like, you have training, which was awesome, and then after training you go home, take a nap, you would eat lunch, you would go on the beach, and then it's like you're living that the vacation lifestyle
Yeah, for
every
sure.
day. So, I mean, I definitely didn't appreciate it as much at the time as I do now. And I feel like
Yeah,
that's
it's how
a
it always is.
yeah, that's like retrospect, like like hindsight is always 2020, when you look back on things,
Absolutely.
you're always like, man, like this was so awesome. That was so great. I wish I would take advantage more
Absolutely.
of this, blah, 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 blah. But man, yeah, I have no complaints about that, man. Um, After Puerto Rico, unfortunately, I also mentioned before that the NASL folded, which was the second tier of American soccer at the time, and then USL ended up becoming second tier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously still in the pyramid MLS and then USL.
Mm.
After that, I signed with the Richmond Kickers in USL, and Eric and I were also speaking about I had some injury troubles there. I did my knee, I did my MCL and my meniscus, and it took a really long time to heal. Unfortunately, I had complications, and I was out for like 5 months. And yeah, that was a really tough time period for me. Did you want to ask something?
Yeah,
Or
a lot of young players, a lot of players, first of all, I mean, we know that football is a very emotional game, and there are ups and downs on the roller coaster, and part of it's injuries, and every athlete gets injured. So just
Mhm.
I think the mental aspect of injury and just like how you think during it is huge. So
Mhm.
how did you approach that, the injury from a mental standpoint, um, and then actually being able to get that rehab done?
Right. Yeah, like we spoke about it before. Like I genuinely believe that every athlete should be convicted themselves. They should have some type of self motivation,
Exactly.
and you should be inspiring yourself. Like I always knew that like my reasons on why I wanted to come back was to prove to myself that I was gonna come back and score goals again. Like I didn't need to prove that to any family members. I didn't need to prove that to
Exactly.
any coaches or any teammates. I just wanted to do it for myself, and I do that with practically everything. I do that with my training now in quarantine. I go out for a run, and then I want to beat the time that I did yesterday. I want to beat it today, and then the time
Mm-hmm.
that I did today, I want to beat tomorrow. Um, and that's just kind of where you have to be careful and smart with it because you don't want to overwork overstress your body, you know.
Hmm.
So I think the element of patience is also really important, and letting your body recoup and making sure that you listen to your body.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, that's huge. And then also, something that I've seen is like from a lot of players recently, and since quarantine began, I had said to players, this is the time to separate, because there are going to be a lot of players around the world, no matter what league they're in, that are just taking this as a chill time, that
Hmm.
are constantly looking to make excuses, look to take days off. And one of the things that I constantly see, and it really puts a question in my mind, like we talked about before, you can say love the process. You can say trust the process. You can say all this cliche shit, but if you don't actually act it, what does it mean? So
Hmm.
something that I've really seen often, and I really question, should the guy be in football anymore, is, what are we training for? Why am I motivated? And it's like, to me, it's like, dude, you're training because you love the game and you want to, when the game comes back, which it will, it's not like the game's completely done. You're going to be ready. You're going to be more ready than your competition. So why doesn't that motivate you? Why doesn't training to, like you said, be better than yourself from yesterday motivate you? And I think as a when you're younger, I wish I was told this more often, that like just being able to compete against yourself and beat yourself from yesterday
Hmm.
is one of the best tips you can get, because especially at a young age, whether you're competing to be more cool in high school or to get more girls, there's always competition, but if you
Hmm.
compete against yourself, to be a little bit better each day, I think it's valuable. And there's something to say, like, yeah, it's okay to look at your competitors to see where your standard is, but most of your focus should be on yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we get caught up with things way too often, that are outside of our own control. And that is 100% correct. That I think that, social media, sometimes we perceive, well, okay, let's just put it this way. Like, I think you're a very fit dude, and it's obvious that physically and aesthetically you're very, very fit. And a lot of people aspire to attain what you have. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, the reality is they're not willing to do what you do. They're
Yeah.
not willing to put in the work, for one, and for two, they don't want to have the discipline to nourish their bodies the way that you're supposed to.
Yeah.
They kind of want to look like you, but they don't want to put in the work like you. So it's like they want to still eat their Nutella breads, they want to eat their
Hmm.
chocolate chips, they want to eat
Yeah.
their, whatever you name it, whatever like your ice cream, your cake, and this, that, and that. But like in reality, like it's to be an elite athlete. I'm not even gonna just say soccer player. I'm just gonna say to be an elite athlete is like you have to be committed around the clock, and you have to
Of
be
course.
committed all the time. Like there's a
Hmm.
time and place for everything. There's a time to recover.
Exactly.
There's a time to recover and to sleep, which is obviously at night. Now, however you you have your routine set up or whatever, that's just the times that you go to sleep. But make sure you get minimum 8 hours of sleep till you get your body
Yeah.
recovered. Make sure that you drink a lot of water. I mean, obviously you don't want to drink a gallon of water in one sitting. You want to distribute your water throughout the entire day so your body stays hydrated the entire day. And those I feel like are things that like people aren't taught until like, they're already so stuck in their ways that like it's hard to change those things, to train your body to, really know how it works. And I'm speaking from myself that I feel like I learned those things far too late. I
Hmm.
wish I knew at like 18, 19, 20 that, you know, breakfast actually means breaking the fast. And
Hmm.
like I see that on your stories from time to time that you're saying you're breaking the fast. But your body just went through a time period of 8 hours or more without water and without food. So
Hmm.
it's like you need to replenish whatever your body needs at the time. And that's the
Hmm.
time and place to eat and drink. You know what I mean? It's not the time and place to eat and drink when you're supposed to be training.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? So I feel like just really being disciplined and really having a regimen and really being in love with that process. Like you said, you can say it. I mean, you can say it all you want, but like if you don't apply it, like that's really the toughest part of everything in life, in my opinion, is applying what you
For
think
sure.
or what you say.
For sure. For sure. First of all, I appreciate that compliment a lot. And like you said, I mean, second of all, and just to go off your point, it's like I always talk about it very often. I think your daily routine and your habits and what you do every day really determines your destiny. And like we said before with working hard, like we said with trusting the process, working smart. You can say it, but actually getting it done is very hard. Kind of just to take some people through your routine right now. What is it looking like, in quarantine? How are you looking at each day, and what are you usually doing during the day?
Um, I'm actually pretty consistent with the times. I mean, it's not always to the half an hour to the hour, but it's pretty consistent. Like in the morning, anywhere from 10 to 11, I go out for a run. I do this thing called intermittent fasting. So
So do I. It's
it
great stuff.
right, yeah. So it's like you're training your body to go through the stress already before you're even getting to your workout. So your body's already pushing itself to the limit before you even get to your real training. But I don't eat past 10 o'clock, and then I eat again at noon. So it's like 14 hours.
Hmm.
It's not really the full 16 hours like they say, but like I kind of have like a different like a strategy that works for me. Something that I
Exactly.
figured out that works for my body and for my routine and for my regimen. So it's like if you do intermittent fasting, like that's great, but just figure out that if you can't fast for 16 hours, eat 12 hours after or eat 14
Exactly.
hours after. Just figure out what works for you. And I
That's
figured
something
that
I
out.
talk about. That's something I just wanted to point out. It's something I talk about often. Online it might say, yeah, you got to do 16/8, and that's the window you got to be in. But the most important thing is adapting it to yourself. So just
Mhm.
like you said, if you first of all, if you're an athlete, you probably shouldn't be doing 16/8 anyways, especially if you're training very hard.
Yeah.
And then second of all, like you said, trying things out. Like if you do a 16/8 day and you feel like shit and your performance is down, you obviously should alter it to a 14/10 or a 12/12. So just pointing that out, I just wanted to reemphasize that.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, I figured out that 14 hours for me works. And when I get obviously lost
No
it for a
worries.
sec.
No worries.
Um, Obviously with intermittent fasting, you're drinking a lot of water. You're making sure that you're still hydrated. That doesn't go into, I guess, like you don't include that in the fast. So you're not fasting from water.
Of
You're
course.
constantly drinking. So it's like just to make that clear that you're basically what you're fasting from are calories, like things that your body needs energy to kind of how do you say, to digest, like your body uses energy to digest food.
Hmm.
That's what are calories. Those are calories, just for the people watching. um and yeah, I go through that until like I make sure I work out at 10 to 11, and then I'm probably done by noon, and that's right when I start eating. Like that's kind of how I've built up here in the quarantine time and the phase of quarantine, that I wake up in the morning, I drink my water, I drink a tea or a coffee, and then I go for a workout. And then by the time that I'm done with my workout, I have time to eat. And I usually make sure that my lunches are smaller. I make sure that, I pack it with protein because I just worked out, and then I just had like a 14, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, sometimes it's 12 hours,
Yeah.
but 12 to
Doesn't have to
14
be
hour
so
window.
specific.
Right. So it's like in between that 12 to 14-hour range, if you're fasting, your body is desperately craving for either carbohydrates or for protein. And,
Hmm.
because I worked out, and and your body wants to repair itself, I just pack my lunch with protein. And if it's not like if it's not like salmon, it's definitely like, you know, lean chicken, lean turkey. I just really make sure that's the lean stuff because I wanna maximize my calories and make sure that,
Mm.
you know, they're going towards the proper nutrients. So that's why I buy the lean stuff. Um, and it's a smaller lunch, and I really save my calories up for dinner. And the reason being is uh, you know, I kind of tend to like get like snacky at night, and I just want to avoid that by really stuffing myself and really getting hungry. And then when I do feel hungry after dinner, I have a tea with like a snack, like if it's a protein bar, a yogurt or something,
Mm.
and then, you know, I'm satisfied. But I know if I have my big lunch first,
Mm.
and, you know, it'll satisfy me till dinner time, and then, you know, I'll eat again at a dinner or whatever. I know for a fact at night I'm gonna be hungry. Like I have something, I'm
Mm.
gonna crave something.
Mhm.
And I kind of strategized and figured out what works for me. And I know that at night I'm just gonna have a big dinner and use most of my, I guess, a lot of calories for the night there. And then I just snack on protein later on, and that's kind of what works for me. And that's what I've really been noticing in my training that's been getting me really strong. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm fitter now than I was even like 2 years ago before my injuries. Like I'm fitter today than I was before I had 2 years worth of injuries.
Mm.
My stamina is far, far greater. My strength and my explosiveness, my acceleration, like just
Mm.
everything that, you know, my agility, everything is just is further advanced than
When
it
did you
was.
start the intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I think I started it like right around like 2 years ago. Like
Mm.
unfortunately, right when I got injured, but you know,
Mm.
then I just like having like a personal, I mean, from personal experience, like, you know, I was emotional eating, like, you know, comfort food and stuff like
Mm.
that. And what that means is basically like because I couldn't play and I was probably
Yeah.
bored and like, you know, I would try to find a way to cope with not being able to play. I would eat a lot, and like I did gain a good amount of weight. I
Mm.
think I ended up being when I stopped when I first got injured, I think I was at like 174, 75, 76 pounds.
Mm.
And by the time I was able to play again, I was at like 187. So I
Wow.
gained like a good 10 pounds over like, yeah, like 5 to 6 months. And
Mm.
it wasn't even really that I was eating terrible. I mean, I wasn't eating good, but like it wasn't like I was constantly eating sugary stuff or like McDonald's or whatever. I was eating normal food, but just my body just wasn't able to burn off the calories, and I
Exactly.
was always in the set calorie surplus.
Hmm.
And you know, over time it accumulated to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately carried that weight over even to the next season, which was last year. And then I unfortunately got injured again, but with a concussion this time. And but I had leaned up again. Like I did lose weight. I was going into the season at like 180, and it wasn't like at
Hmm.
187, but 180. But I was still overweight. I was still 5 pounds heavier than my normal self. But today I'm back to
Hmm.
like 173, 174.
Mm.
And like now
Mm.
I'm back to just really at my ideal weight. I feel fresh, like I feel strong. Mentally, I'm very clear just because the
Mm.
diet and like, you know,
For
the
sure.
foods that I'm eating are just really making me the foods that you put in your body really determine how strong and how clear and how heavy you can train.
For sure.
That's essentially what makes up the human body is the nourishment that you're giving it. So yeah, man, I think that's my my quarantine in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, I mean it sounds great, and the fact that you talk about the intermittent fasting and how it helped you lose weight. For me, it's the same thing. Um, it helped me get really lean, and like you said, it's something that works for me. Some people are very hungry in the morning; they have to eat before they train.
Hmm.
But like we talked about, you got to listen to your body, and that's the most important thing.
Right.
Um, But when you're doing, what type of things are you incorporating into your training? At the moment, physically, you training with the ball. What types of things you doing throughout the quarantine?
Hmm. I really addressed my specific need, and I feel like what I've been lacking for the last few years has been fitness, and obviously due to the weight that I gained, and also just my overall pattern or just my overall being was just completely thrown off from the injuries. So I really reset myself to the basics, and I just for the past like 4 weeks, man, I've just been running. I mean, I've just been going on long distance runs. I have a log. I have an app that I've been logging all of my runs, and they range from anywhere from 3 miles a day to like 7. So it's like depending on the day. I think my first week when I started logging it, I think I ran a total. I think I ran a total of like I'm not gonna guess. So it was like between 25 and 30 miles in 6 days. So I took one day off and then I trained 6 days. So I mean, an average of 5 miles a day. And
Mm,
I just really chose to say like, look, like let me strategize this the right way. So how am I gonna get my body fit again? Like how am I gonna lose weight? Okay, probably gonna have to incorporate a lot of cardio. And then I actually scratched working out. Like I wasn't doing any type of body weights. I wasn't doing any type of like, weightlifting, nothing. I just said, you know what, let me just go run. So
mm,
I did that for a week, and then after that, I started incorporating body weight stuff. And then I do a lot of the things that actually that you preach and that you post on your Instagram is like like a lot of planks, a lot of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups, like a lot of very simple, a lot of simple things that is just super duper underrated in my opinion. That it's like
mm,
it just your body thrives off simplicity and like compound lifts. Like for example, you can do a timed body weight squat and it would burn more than if you do 3 sets of 5 of 225 pounds of squats.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm.
And it's uh, I guess if you had to label it, it would be like a hit training, right? Like just like an intense, shorter period of time workout. And that's kind of where and how I started really becoming the player again that I remember being 2 years ago was
Mm,
through that. Just kind
mm.
of really going back to the basics, just run a lot, just do the body weight stuff, and then incorporate high intensity movements. And then, dude, I somehow just got back to being the same player or a better player than I was 2 years ago.
Mm. No, I mean that's it says a lot, and it's about just constantly being able to go back to the basics
Hmm.
and do the simple things right, consistently.
Right.
Um, but yeah, in terms of sleep, how do you generally look at sleep? You have a specific time you generally try to get to sleep, or how you kind of doing that during these quarantines?
Um, During the quarantine, it's a little bit different just because I don't really have a set date, like a set hour that I go to sleep,
Yeah.
but I generally sleep 8 hours a night. Like
Hmm.
I definitely get it in somehow one way or another. If I go to sleep at 1, I wake up at 9. If I will go to sleep at 12, I wake up at 8. My internal body clock won't even allow me to sleep longer than 8 hours, which I find healthy. Like I kind of like
Hmm.
that because I don't like to oversleep
For
because
sure.
that kind of releases like kind of the the hormones and like the chemicals in your brain to kind of make you just like sleepier throughout the day.
For
So
sure.
I try to avoid that, and I just really try to get in my 8 hours, and then after that, like if it was 8 hours, then I just get up, like regardless what time. And especially since we're in such a free time that we don't really have to get up in the morning.
Exactly.
It varies. I think the latest that I've probably gotten up during this entire quarantine, the last like 5 to 6 weeks, was like 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Um, but I really try to go to sleep anywhere from 11 to 1 and just wake up between 8 and 9.
Hmm. Makes sense. No, I mean, you seem like a very you got a great routine and good discipline. What's your plan now? Like, do you have a plan? Do you want to stay in Switzerland? You looking to go back to the US? You looking to make a move to Europe? If you don't mind sharing what your thoughts are. I mean, obviously, most of us don't know what's going to happen next, but just if you were to, you know, formulate something, what you've been thinking about.
Right. Yeah, I think ideally I would like to stay. You know, I want to be here in Europe with my family, but most importantly, I wanna advance my career as well. I think Switzerland is a very unique country for soccer because it presents a lot of opportunities that maybe other countries don't do. Like, for example, in the United States, I think the most unique thing is that college will allow you to go play a sport and also study at the same time, which a lot of countries don't allow that, or just the system isn't set in place for that. And I think that what's very unique about Switzerland is that even as a full-time professional, there are a lot of options that you can go work on the side, which is extremely helpful because it kind of gives you financial freedom to kind of negotiate different types of contracts.
For sure.
I mean, contracts in Switzerland range like from millions and millions of dollars or Swiss francs, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say dollars, to, you know, like the standard, you know, $2,000 per month, and then you're just like, you know, you're a standard professional. But you know, the freedom behind it is that, you know, you can sign a professional contract, but then you have your day job that pays you a really healthy salary, which that's your main source of income, and then kind of soccer aids as a complementary income. But you're playing at a professional level, and don't get me wrong, the professional level is very, very high here.
Yeah,
but
it's very good.
it just I would prefer to kind of take that route because, you know, I'm a little bit later in my career. I mean, I'm obviously not anywhere close to being done. I still think I have another healthy five years. You know, you can play until you're 31, 32 and be healthy, you know. But I think just from a strict, you know, thinking about my future, Switzerland is a very, very stable country, and it's a beautiful country, and financially, I mean, I'm very blessed and lucky to say that, like, you know, it's a stable country. And I feel like I can really, like I was mentioning before, like build roots here, and I can really, you know, I can really settle myself here and find something that works with soccer and with work. Also, I'll be going back to school in the fall, and I'm going to wrap up my bachelor's degree in finance that I was doing while I was at Charlotte. And that's another cool thing that, you know, I can do that online. I don't even have to be at a school. I can just go to play soccer. I can either go to work or I could go to school. So that's kind of, yeah, my plans are a little bit up in the air still, just because, you know, like you said, we don't know how the pandemic is gonna affect the soccer world as a whole. Like, maybe there are going to be a lot of openings for clubs, but then maybe there'll be a lot of closed doors because financially they just can't seem to justify to sign more players. So I'm not really too sure which way it'll go.
No. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to talk about, and something I talk about all the time. Like, the most important thing is being able to find your home, and like you said, find your roots and make a place your home. You know, like whether it's in Switzerland or in the US or whatever journey you're taking, you need to think about, like, you know, obviously it's great to have short-term goals, but you should think about spending at least 3 to 4 years in that country and actually making a commitment to the country. I think that's something that's underrated. It's easy to country hop. I've done it, and I kind of regret that. I wish I stayed in one country for longer, and that's my plan now. So I think it's ideal to go to a country that you feel comfortable in, learn the language, and try to really integrate into it.
Right. Yeah, no, and I mean, where you're at is actually very good as well. I'm semi-connected in Israel because I got some buddies playing there. I have my agent is actually from there, and I was over there and spent some time there as well with Hepo Ramet Gan.
Mm,
And the level over there is quite impressive, like the Israeli population loves soccer.
for
It's
sure.
definitely a soccer country,
Yeah.
and it's a pretty special place. I mean, I really enjoyed it when I was there.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
one thing I was going to mention was that I really liked what you said about this quarantine period. You should use it to your advantage, because it's 100%. I agree with what you said. Like you kind of read it off my mind. So I've been thinking about that since the beginning. Is that this is for a lot of players, they probably think they're on holiday, like they think
Yeah,
that
exactly.
they have a secure spot at a club. They have their
Hmm.
salaries rolling in, they're comfortable. They're maybe putting in 50% of the work, maybe even less. And if you can catch up, and you can really push yourself to catch up to, I mean, to anywhere close to that standard, to that level, this you could really use this to your advantage. And that's something that I kind of ingrained into my mind that I'm like, okay, like, yeah, my situation isn't the greatest right now, but it could be worse. And like now that this
For sure.
entire pandemic happened, like it's all fair game now, comes the
For sure.
summer, nobody had been playing football for 3 to 4 months. So it's all fair game again.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, and just like you emphasized, it's a key period to really separate from the competition. Like if you think you've lost some time in the past by doing stupid shit, making stupid decisions, which I totally have,
Hmm.
I think this is a time, and when I was younger, I did it, ages 14 to 16, I took time off that wasn't right. So I told myself in the beginning of this quarantine, now is time to catch up.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes you always learn from everything you do and all your experiences. And for me, I think this is just like you said, a lot of people are taking this as a time to rest and enjoy time off, which is fine. One week off isn't going to kill you, and it might be good for you if you've been, pounding your body into the ground for a while. But if
Absolutely.
it's, you need to know that maybe it's time to really put in the work and really use this time to your advantage, because it's basically like we've never seen in the world, like where you can gain time. For me, it's like I'm gaining time, and I always talk about with money, you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. So right now we got to
Right.
use this to our advantage of kind of like we're making more time for ourselves.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put things. Like never in the history of well, I guess of our lives, because there's not really
Yeah.
ever been something of this magnitude going on. Is that the whole world is stopped? Like, you know what I mean? I mean
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy to think about that. Like, yeah, literally we're all kind of waiting for this to pass, and people are just really spending this free time differently from one another. And yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like this is definitely the time for people who feel like they have something to prove. They need to utilize this time to
Absolutely.
better themselves while other people aren't doing that.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. One thing I wanted to get into, um, you know, many people see that pros are very disciplined, and you seem very disciplined yourself. But I think it's very important, like you had talked about before, and I talk about constantly in my content and on the podcast and on Instagram. It's just like how um, the like kind of how football affects the emotions. So I wanted to ask you, how do you unwind from football? Because it's good to be 24/7 with football, but it's sometimes it's good to get away, and taking that off time sometimes is necessary. So during the season, when you're in a lot of games, you're in a run of games, you're starting, you're doing well. How do you unplug?
Um, everybody has a different outlet, right? I mean, everybody has like a
Yeah.
different way to cope with that. Like a lot of people love to spend time with their family. a lot of people have different hobbies, like, or a different sport that they play to like to unwind, you know, like, okay, I want to put soccer to the side, let me grab my tennis racket, or let me go get my golf club, etc. And I guess my best way of kind of unwinding from things is really just spending time with my family, because the majority of my career I've been away.
For sure.
So for the last 7 years, I've been in the United States, or either even here for a short time. But I've been away from everybody. And in the off season, I really made it adamant, or I made it a priority to come here and to be here with my family. And in America, the off season is completely different than from Europe, because the European calendar is 6 weeks or 4 weeks in the summer, and then 4 weeks in the winter. But in America, it's all in one go. So it's like, from November something until January something, you're not playing football. So there's like a 8 to 9 week gap between trainings, or in between seasons. And in that like time frame, I would always come here, and I would spend time with my family. And I would really, because I'm a Christian, we would celebrate Christmas. We would celebrate obviously New Year's. Around the whole world does it as well, but just spend the holidays together. And that's kind of what really helped me unwind from everything. I guess from football as a whole. But I guess kind of to touch up more specifically towards your question, how do you wind up, or like kind of go away from football through the season emotionally? I think that you should just really find an outlet for yourself. And for me, it was always like really just throwing everything away to the side and just be a normal human being. Like, go eat at a good restaurant that you like, go watch a nice
Yeah.
movie, or go play some video games, or like, just do something like normal. Like, it doesn't have to be soccer specific. Like, something completely like not soccer specific. Like, so for me, when I was in Puerto Rico, and I told you I was living like in this like fantasy world, kind of like, beach and this, that, and that. Like, that kind of became like a monotonous thing. So it's like me and one of my really close friends, we made a decision that every Thursday we would go to the Cheesecake Factory and we would go watch a movie. And we would get lost in that 4 or 5 hour time period at the Cheesecake Factory and at the movie theater. And we were just doing
Sure.
just normal things. Like, we weren't talking about soccer. We weren't talking about, this and that. We were just talking about normal things like life, like family, like, goals that we have outside of soccer, and like, education and system, like whatever, like just anything you can think of. And that was my outlet. Like, it was like,
For sure.
let's put soccer to the side. Let's just talk like humans, and like, real things like that go on outside of the soccer field. And that really helped me a lot.
Absolutely. We got 2 minutes left here. Let's end this and then restart it to finish off the conversation.
All right, dude. What's up?
All right, brother. Sounds good.
All right.
Been a great convo so far with Giuseppe. Hope you guys are enjoying it. We're just finishing up real quick. Got a couple more things I want to cover.
Yeah, bro. We're back. So what I wanted to talk about is, like you said, it's key to, be able to unwind from footy, become, quote, a normal human, stop thinking so much about football and focusing on other things in whatever you do. And even like when you're on a strict diet and, you're a footballer and you eat well all the time, it's okay, once in a while to have a piece of cheesecake, have something you love. But I think the number one thing is just being able to get right back on track and not letting it be, cyclical downfall, because that's what leads to the weight gain and or even if you skip a day at the gym, or if training, you don't feel good, you don't feel right and you want to rest, like just not making it a habit and like I think you talked about when we started the whole thing, everything in moderation, and you know, being able to enjoy going to a movie, and letting yourself get out of this football flow, I think is essential for any player who's obsessed with the game, and really is trusting the process.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's really important that you just know that, you're a human first and then you're a soccer player second, you know what I
Sure.
mean? And that's just the psychological nature of our being, And if we stress too much about one thing, like, it could just lead to various negative things, like for example, burnout. Or like, if you put too much pressure on yourself, then like, you become anxious and you become a person that is not composed.
Hmm.
So, it's very important to, find a balance between, you know, being a hard worker, and like I said before, I kind of mentioned it too. It's like, everything has its time and place.
Exactly.
Like you can really there is a time and place to go to a nice restaurant, enjoy a piece of cheesecake with your friends, and just,
For
chop
sure.
it up, talk about life, and then, essentially the next day, just make sure that you don't do it again. Just make sure that, you're back on track, you're back on your training
Exactly.
regimen. And you also mentioned it too, like, it feels weird when you skip a training session, but sometimes I feel like it's a healthy thing. We
Absolutely.
shouldn't overwork our bodies, we have to have a period of rest also to maximize our recovery and to just get stronger and get better.
Absolutely. And the thing you pointed out about, you know, there, like we talked about from the beginning, like, and you constantly were saying how you'd always want to compete with yourself and always want to be better. It's I always like every person's development, and their plan and the way their life goes and their journey is different.
Hmm.
So just like you said, for someone, progress might be taking a day off at the gym.
Hmm.
For another person, progress is going to the gym. For
Right.
one person, not eating the cheesecake could be progress. For the other person, it could be, because like you said, you need that balance. You need that relationship with yourself to be able to justify what, what is right for you. Because,
Hmm.
I often get messages, why don't you go play here? Why aren't you playing there? Why didn't you do this? It's like, dude, I appreciate your opinion and I appreciate your thoughts, but you don't know the real behind the scenes. Like, you don't know what's really going on, what happened here, what happened there, and a lot of football is behind the scenes. A lot of
Absolutely.
things happen behind the scenes, and I've seen a lot of things in football that aren't the prettiest behind the scenes, but
Hmm.
you do it for what goes on. What, like, your why and your purpose. And I talked about this last time, just having the ability to find that why and that purpose in whatever you do just should be able to give you that instant motivation.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. And I think you pointed out something unfortunate but very important, that, like the things behind the scenes aren't always pretty.
No,
It's like whatever you see in the front, it doesn't always really mean what happened in the back. So it's something to keep in mind, but I think focusing on that really could hurt you more than do
for
you any
sure.
good. I think the most important thing about the game is still what happens in front of the scenes. You know what I mean?
Of
It's
course.
still it's still the training, it's still the lifestyle you live. It's the discipline that you carry. And honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, you know, eh, a lot does come down to you. Like you have to perform in training. You have to perform in games when you're being called on. You have to respond when it's your turn, because then
Hmm.
you didn't do your part. You know what I mean? Then you can say whatever you
Exactly.
want, that this happened behind the scenes, that happened behind the scenes. But I genuinely think that, like, um, there's a really good quote. I don't want to misquote it because it really is that good, and I wouldn't do it any justice. But Um, I think it goes along the lines like success is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Said well.
So yeah, success equals preparation when preparation meets opportunity. And I think that is so true because, you can go into a trial and not be fit and not perform your best, and then you can not get signed, and then the coach, and then you can say, oh, well, the coach doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, yeah, they didn't like me from the beginning, like without me even touching a ball or whatever.
Hmm.
But if you went in there in that same trial and you would have put the work in and you would have trained and been ready for that trial, the narrative of that story could have been completely different.
Hmm.
And I genuinely believe that the most important thing is definitely still what happens in front of the scenes.
Oh, of course, of course. And like you said, I mean, I just posted something about Robin Van Persie. He had like a 2 minute interview. I forgot who it was, but he was just pointing out how, like, his son came in the car. He was on the bench. He's playing at IF 14s right now, and the son was blaming the coach. He was blaming the kids, blaming this, blaming that. And Van Persie said to him, he's like, losers are people who blame others. Winners are people who take their development and their life upon themselves, and they act on it. And they can look themselves in the mirror and they can say when they played badly, they didn't work hard enough. They didn't do what they were supposed to. People who
Mm,
take that ownership.
right.
Um, and I think it's just key to be able to, like you've been talking about the whole time, take that extreme ownership of your career, of your development, and be able to, like you said before, take it, control what you can control, take it in your own hands, and make your own destiny.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to kind of summarize really the important things are like the tangibles, like everything that is tangible, and tangible meaning like what I can control. Like I can control my attitude, I can control my work rate, I can control how I interact with others, I can control if I'm respectful towards my coach, if I'm obedient towards my coach, if I'm respectful with my teammates. You know, like those are the things at the end of the day that really make a complete footballer. Um, it's it's like, you do meet those people from time to time that don't live up to what I'm saying, that, are the complete opposite, and, they get away with everything, and, they're still an amazing footballer. Nobody really cares about how they really are as people. But, there's always an exception to the rule. But I feel like just for the general population and just for do it for yourself. Like, don't even do it for others, but like, just control the things that you can't control and be a nice person. And that in itself will get you a long way. Relationship building and networking is something of one of the most important things in life
Sure.
that you'll ever come across. And you might only have one opportunity to be nice to someone before it's too late, because maybe the second time around, that person that you weren't nice to the first time around is your coach, or he's your GM, or
Absolutely.
he's an agent that will badmouth you. And it all stems from that one interaction that you had with that person. And sometimes you're not the cup of tea for that person, and you are who you are, but you at least did what was in your control. You know what I mean?
So,
You were at
no.
least you were at least authentic, and you were yourself. And then the problem is with them.
Mm, no, absolutely. And those are some fantastic words right there. Um, just, like you said, just being able to build relationships and network with people is one thing, and then just always being a good guy, being a kind dude, being willing to give his best, and um, constantly perform and be a true professional, show your discipline. And then, like you said, when you do that stuff, everything works out because no one's going to talk, badly about you. Oh, he was doing this, he was disrespectful to this person, to that person. If you take care of those things, everything will work out. And then, of course, if you're working hard, just, those things you're doing on the field are the most important.
Hmm.
But what I like to point out on my page often is also those 21, 22 hours that are off the pitch that aren't in the gym are as or more important to prepare yourself for when you get on that pitch or when you get into that gym to actually improve your performance.
Right. Yeah, of course. No, I 100% agree. I feel like we touched on it earlier. Like there's a time and place for everything, but how you train or how you live your life outside of the pitch is almost more important than on.
Absolutely.
I think I mentioned on the first time that we tried to do the Instagram live that you can run as many miles as you want and you can lose as many calories as you want, but if you come home and you don't apply or eat the appropriate nutrients and the appropriate quantity, you're still not going to lose weight. You're working hard, but you're not doing the right things. And it's exactly to
Mm-hmm.
your point. It's the outside of the field. That's one of those components. It's like if you're drinking alcohol, if you're smoking, if you're taking drugs, if you're not sleeping appropriate amount of hours, if you're, just wasting time doing other things that won't allow your body to recover properly, then you'll pay the consequences physically on the field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I was going to ask you some pieces of advice to end there, but I think all that's perfect. I think we summed it up well. I really enjoyed the talk, man, and I wish you well. I'm going to post this on the story, going to post it on YouTube and a podcast. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, of course. No, I also, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody who spent time watching and even taking interest on hearing what I have to say and what Rick has to say. I think the most important thing for us now is like, just we just have to put out what we want others to see, like you have to you do a really good job of, making hard training look easy. You sum
Appreciate that.
up knowledge and you put it into like a very simple form, and then if applied correctly, I think that the results will get there. I think you and
Mm-hmm.
I spoke about it also. It's like you just have to be persistent with it, and you have to just consistently keep doing it, and then you'll see results. I think a lot of
Absolutely,
people
brother.
give up too early, unfortunately.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. You're a true professional. It was good to meet you. I'm sure we'll catch up sometime soon in Europe, or maybe if you come back over to Israel, we'll catch up. But
Yeah, I love
it
that.
was awesome, bro.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much again, and then I wish you all the best over there, and stay healthy. Yeah, don't be going crazy with that Corona stuff.
Yeah, you
All
too,
right,
brother.
all
Stay
right.
safe, man.
You too.
All
All
right,
the
peace.
best. Bye bye. Take
See you,
care.
brother.